Anyway, hate to be a little drum, but I just, I've been watching a couple of news articles this weekend and last night, and the country's really getting crazier and crazier. So, and I'm saying the same thing in hopes to get people's attention, because we need to have a united middle class. A united and healthy middle class creates a strong America. And you have to listen to who wants that to happen and has ways of making it happen. And then we need to vote people in and vote people out according to their strengths or weaknesses. And it's going to take some time to do, to get finally a handle over our political system, because we have no handle over this. And the founding fathers gave us this. We owe it to them. They weren't perfect people, but and they were elites, but they at least saw that this country, the middle class of this country, needs to run the important issues directed by our politicians. And just like you have a head of a company and you have the crew of a company, if that's not going right in a company, one or the other, that company goes out, right? Well, this country is much, obviously a whole different scenario, but it matches a bit, because we're on the way to communism right now, or socialism, and there's just no getting around that fact that either we come together and we pull together and we look out for our neighbors and we talk to each other and we do those things that our founding fathers gave us the freedom to do, and or we don't have a society anymore. Anyway, we're going to start getting this down. I'm still working on some lighting. Barbie's moving to California, so she's going to be producer Barbie remote. But I think we might be able to get her on camera this way. So with all of that said, you guys have a great weekend. Say hi to each other. Go out and say hi to somebody. Just wave at them, man. Start that way. Just wave at them. Every time you see them, wave at them if you don't know them. And then you'll see the reaction change, evolve. You'll see the body language evolve. Go out and say hi to a couple of people today. Anyway, love you guys. Thanks for being here. If you have, Dave, I got you up here. Hi. There we go. We started off wrong already. I'll be right back to you, brother. Man, I'll tell you what. Look at, if you've ever thought about supporting real independent media, the kind of that actually gives voice to working families, local leaders, teens, and everyday stories that matter. This is one of those moments for you. Insights and Straight Talk is powered by the community it serves. No corporate overlords, no mystery algorithms deciding what you're allowed to hear. Just real people helping keep the lights on and the cameras rolling, the conversations honest. Whether it's $9.99 a month for triple voices, Substack editions, or stepping in as a show sponsor, your support helps us stay independent, unscripted, and very real. And yes, it also helps pay the electric bill, which we appreciate more than you know. Now, let's get into it. That opening that I had, that opening video, I did that over 1.5 years ago, and I could have done it 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and unfortunately, the same things apply, And does it ever feel like every headline already knows what you're supposed to think, who you're supposed to blame, and which side you're supposed to be on before you even finished your coffee? You're not behind. You're being managed. Welcome to Insights and Straight Talk with Rodd Duff and producer Barbie. Across the United States, Europe, and Australia, the same uneasy feeling is spreading. Something feels off, doesn't it? Just not just politically, not just economically, systemically. Wars escalate, elections stack up, costs of living rise, trust in institutions falls, and instead of clear explanations for these things, people are handed simplified narratives designed to trigger emotion instead of build understanding. That's not accidental. That's corporate media no longer focusing on helping people understand complexity. It focuses on optimization. Algorithms, you got to understand, they reward outrage. Platforms reward speed. Sponsors, politicians, political parties reward attention, the right attention. Context quietly disappears because it does not perform well. So stories get shorter, complexity gets completely stripped out, and people get sorted into neat little boxes before they have time to think for themselves. Left versus right, urban versus rural, cultural labels, economic labels. It starts to feel less like news and more like a very loud argument you never agreed to join. Meanwhile, the middle class, the backbone of every democracy, ends up arguing with itself, while the systems applying the pressure remain comfortably untouched. That kind of division is not just convenient, it's profitable. That's exactly why Insights and Straight Talk exists and why we are supported by places like the Mangum City Library and partners like Leaf Lab through the Regeneration School Project and Voices at the Table, because media literacy is no longer optional. It's political self-defense. Here's the part people feel in their gut, but rarely hear said out loud. The middle class is not failing. It's being managed through fear, managed through division, managed through narratives that redirect frustration towards cultural enemies instead of institutional accountability. So what happens? Costs rise, sustainability shrinks, responsibility increases. And when people ask responsible questions about corruption, influence, or outcomes, they're labeled as misinformed, extreme, or extremists, or on the wrong side of history, or worse. That labeling is not journalism. It is discipline. Tonight, we're going to talk about that openly, because the chaos we are living in does not come from lack of information. It comes from information systems designed to divide instead of explain. Corruption today rarely is made to look illegal. It looks institutional. It lives in revolving doors, regulatory capture, sponsor pressure, algorithms driven outrage, and media narratives that protect systems instead of citizens. That is why tonight's guest is back. Dave Chauhan returns to Insights and Straight Talk, not to sell slogans or even offer comfort, but to speak honestly about what happens when systems lose integrity and narratives replace reality. Leadership will come up, particularly where it intersects with truth, courage, and accountability, because leadership that refuses to name corruption is not leadership. It is compliance. And politics without honesty is not governance. It is control. This conversation is for people who feel the pressure, see the contradictions, and are tired of being told the problem is them. Tonight, we are not choosing sides. We are questioning the very system that keeps choosing sides for us. So, Dave, welcome back. Let's talk straight here, brother.
Wow, Rod, what a monologue. I'm not sure how we're going to top that. I know we spoke
Oh, come on.
offline, but
Yes.
um, that was that was such a deep and intensified topic, and I'm so glad to have such an honest conversation today. Because when we talk about leadership concepts, when we talk about what's happening in corporate world, we often see leadership from the lens of look at what's happening in the share market, and look who are the ones on the top 100
Excellent.
Forbes list, and who are the top companies leading the market and the share market. And we forget that leadership, the real leadership, happens when people struggle to put food on the plate, when they
Absolutely.
struggle to give a proper life to the children, when we talk about the everyday questions that what's happening in aged care homes, when we forget that how are we going to decrease the rising social distrust that's built in the society and it's at highest levels. One of the most recent research that came out, where the institutional trust in the society, and I'm talking about institutional trust by the sense of trust in governments, trust in social
Yeah.
enterprises, is the lowest it has been ever in the society, in the history ever. We trust companies like Apple and Teslas of the world more than our governments. Those elements getting impacted every day, and I think we need to start question that part, that why it's happening. And part of it is it is when we distill it down to the layers of leadership, and the answer will be the lack of leadership and the lack of trust that modern leaders are exhibiting these days is the prime reason that why people are losing trust in our social institutions today. So thank you for orchestrating and enabling this conversation. I'm glad to be here.
You bet, Dave. I appreciate you being here, and switching gears slightly, although kind of parallel, because as you just expanded on the monologue there, leadership is basically what we're talking about, and because of our political leadership, it's making the rest of our us the leadership we have at home, at in the workplace, and so forth and so on. It makes it harder and more difficult and challenging every day. We have 200 people on. Not a bad start out of the gate here. Appreciate you guys being here. Please subscribe, like the episode, smash the like button. I've been hearing that lately on social media, so I'm going to say smash the like button. But in all seriousness, I was thrilled to, in the green room in the last show we did. We talked about a couple of other topics. One we'll probably come into even stronger, maybe on another show, in the AI discussion. And again, leadership around an evolving world. There's a lot of reasons to have discussions together. But today, because of not only, like I said, in that opening monologue, I did that a year and a half ago, and I could have done it 5 years. Same exact thing, same monologue. I mean, a video, same opening video, same exact thing. Same things are going on. We're not doing the same things. And like you said just a minute ago, we need to have these conversations. Even in your email that we were responding back and forth, you said it's important to have these conversations set in this preference, not two people screaming at each other's face and trying to prove you're wrong because I'm right. Because it's not about that. It's about whatever direction. There was a day that Democrats and Republicans, let's just keep those two parties just to make it simple, okay? But it all applies, right? No matter what, throughout history. But there was a day where it wasn't necessarily perfect, or it wasn't necessarily much better having any non-corruption, but at least during that time, one side and the other side both tried to get to the same truth, get to the same thing that the country needed at that time, maybe through different paths, maybe through different social programs or eliminating balancing books, but they had a direction to come at it across. Now it's just about whether the Democratic Party wins or the Republican Party wins. That's all it's about. Do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, Rod. And there is much deeper reason. And when we start peeling the layers of what's happening in the society, we will see that there is an ultimate human truth there. Let's talk about what was happening back in 90s and back in 2000s when we used to get our news from newspaper or through our daily broadcast at 7 or 8, whatever news channel you were following. What was
There were
happening
basically three news channels, right? CBS, NBC, here anyway.
and then about similar across the globe, we will have BBC and ABC, and we will have 2 or 3 private channels. And depending what side of politics you like, you will choose one as your central focus, and then you will have left or right wing media consumption. But what was happening at the time was we will be provided with news and information that everyone will have access to. You'll pick your newspaper and you will read the news. You will have 2 or 3 newspapers coming. And I remember we used to have 3 newspapers at the time growing up, and we will read news from different lenses, from different newspapers or published by different publications. But once the news has come to me, the news won't change. Every morning at 8 a.m., when the newspapers will start hitting the road, the news has already been out. It won't change based on the subject and the content media and your psyche or your inclination. It's already out there. So once I will consume the news, then I'll go out in the public, I'll go back to my school or your work, and you will discuss the news, or you'll discuss it with your peers out there, and you will form your opinions about what's happening in the world.
Yep.
So generally, when you look at that diaspora or spread of the news content, most people will sit in the middle. So say 50% into the middle of any particular issue, you will sit between 40s and 60s, because people will get their media consumption and will discuss with people, and you will have arguments, you will have discussions, and then you'll come back, because everyone will sit in the category of 40 to 60. No, and yes, always there will be 2% people who will be on the left or extreme right, but they will always be there. Most population will sit right in the middle, and that's why you will see elections will swing basically right and left, and you will go one party to another party depending on the cycle of the voting cycle or government cycle.
And that's still true today. That part is still true today.
Yeah,
that most of the people are in the middle.
Absolutely.
The extremists may be a larger number, but it's still the same thing.
That's true. But what's happening with algorithms right now is a different story. So let's get to that.
This is the problem.
This is the problem. Because when I say I am sitting, let's take that example. I'm sitting at 50% of ratio. You are sitting at 49 and I'm sitting at 51. I will see news that will be at 48 for me and 52 for you, because social media algorithms will train us. It will push us a little bit off our comfort zone, but towards our natural biases, tiny bit. This happens on Monday. On Tuesday, I will get 45 and you will get 55. On Wednesday, I'll get 40 and you will get 60.
Yep.
And so in 6 months' time, because the news that I'm consuming, the information that I'm consuming, it is now suited to my psyche and my biases. In 6 months' time, if we haven't caught up, I'll go all the way to 30 and you will be sitting at 70% of that ratio, of that scale. And when we come back, because our physical truth has been altered based on the information that we are consuming, the world that we are living in, your and my truth is so vastly and vividly different that in 6 months' time, when you and I will meet again, I'll be sitting at 20% of that scale and you'll be sitting at 80% of the scale, and we won't be able to have a reasonable conversation.
Absolutely.
And that's happening. That's what's happening in society.
Let me ask you something. Just to little tweak that a little bit.
and leaning on my my monologue a touch, right? Is that algorithm done? Now, there's been a lot of accusations about politics in the media and social, and you know all those stories over the last several elections and so forth. I'm not going there, but I'm just thinking from the way you just said it, are those algorithms done purposely to just shove content to you that you want to see so you stay on longer? And that's obviously the corporate side. Or has there been a time that still exists where a tweak was made with the algorithm to shove only one type of political content your way, or whatever fits in that code, because it's easy to do? What do you think?
So, Rod, to explain what's happening with social media, let's go back and look at what was happening back in 1960s and 1970s. 1960s
Okay.
and 1970s, we were told that smoking is good. All
Yes.
these companies who were selling
Cleared your
cigarettes,
lungs.
yeah,
Cleared your lungs.
they will give us every possible reason on the planet to justify, including what somebody might call pseudoscience or somebody might call science. You can always have biased results through science as well. We were shown all this information to prove that smoking is good. Yet the people who were running these companies, they knew how bad it was. They knew, and they would tell their own families and kids and wives back home that you should not smoke. It's almost a repetition of exactly same thing what's happening right now. Social media overlords, they know how much damage social media is doing right now. There is one reason for social media to bring the world together. There is second or a different reason to keep the eyeballs. There was a quote that was made by I won't name the company leader, but they mentioned our biggest competitor is time, because the algorithms are designed to basically increase your time that you spend on social media. So the only challenge is that you need to go and have a sleep or take a break or eat food, so you can come back and keep doing it over and over again. So social media companies know by default. There have been so many uh, whistleblowers who have come out and have explained that how bad of the system it is, and how social media companies actually know that they're tweaking the algorithm to go against the human uh, psychology. And that's a problem, because systems, share market value, all of that's designed to keep building what companies need at the expense of damaging the human society and fabric of it. And unless we fix that part, that how we perceive success, how we see companies should behave ethically, companies are incentivized to do this. You can't blame companies, because the system tells them, the share market tells them, that you have to increase your subscription, and people dwelling on social media and doom scrolls and all that. System is telling them. So on one side, I might be complaining about all this, but at the same time, I'll go and invest my $40,000 in a share market being driven predominantly by Facebook. I can't complain.
So what is the tact? What is the? We've got a number of questions coming up that are asking better questions than I am right now. But here's the thing: is we're locked in the systems, and we're all human beings. And what you just said holds true to even bigger scales and to less thinkable scales. I mean, for instance, the same thing that you just talked about, cigarettes. Most cigarette people, when they started losing money there, they went and bought the food companies. So it's the same freaking thing going on, and yet we aren't aware enough. But we're not aware enough because we don't take the time to be aware enough. So how do we get past? This isn't a. This is just throw something out, because not one answer is going to fix this. But we got a long way to go on this. Like kind of that doomsday opening video that I had. It's like people. You should just start doing watch parties and start. Producer Barbie started one out in California, and it's actually over the last couple of elections, it's gotten pretty interesting out there. But not the whole state, just those watch parties. But the reason I say that is because we need to talk about things. That's the only way we're going to get past doing what it is that these problems are causing us. I should say eliminating the things that are causing us. How do we start that? How do we get to there?
So from my perspective, again, let's look at an example, and for lack of better example, let's look at Facebook. When
Yep.
Facebook started, when the initial goal was established for Facebook and company established its mission and vision statement, their ultimate vision was to bring the world together. We're talking about, early 2000s, and at the time there was a massive percentage of population with no access to internet, no access to mass communication by the means of mobile phones and whatnot. So they were on a mission to connect and bring the world together. And in fact, they did it. Very first few years, what Facebook was focused on, it wasn't focused on monetization. It wasn't focused on, bringing more ads and buying more apps. None of that was happening. They were genuinely doing what they were supposed to do, and they were being a mission-driven organization, and they somehow managed to get there. But then comes share market. There'll be people who will be investing money in the company. People will buy shareholder rights, and suddenly you have shareholder market now pulling the strings or controlling the company, and that's when damage happens. That's when suddenly the shift will go towards how we make more value for what Milton Friedman said, that companies should, the only goal for company is to make shareholder value as long as you do it lawfully. And that definition, we spoke about it earlier, that's very timid, that's very flimsy definition and very flimsy standard. So we can see that exactly what Facebook did. From the point today, what Facebook is doing, they are letting scammers run advertisements, despite the fact that they know that these are scam, big scam and big frauds that people are running. But they can't stop those advertisements, and they won't stop those advertisements because there is massive revenue coming, and they can't go back to their shareholders by saying,
wait a minute. So you're saying Facebook today, currently, and I'm not disputing it, I'm just shocked, is getting away with running ads. Oh, by the way, we have 600 people on. Running ads for known scammer. I mean, you can prove scammer people. Is that what you just said, or is my ears popping out of my head for no reason?
So let's dwell on it a little bit more. China does not allow Facebook. Facebook is not allowed in China yet.
True.
Yet China still is one of the biggest markets for Facebook, because there are a lot of advertisements that are being run by scammers operating in China, running these scam advertisements for people in Western economies, so they can run their scam shams in the background, and Facebook won't shun them. Facebook will still let them run those advertisements, despite the fact Facebook knows that they are spam or scammy advertisements that people are running, but Facebook won't stop them, and that's true.
Wow.
And we can see this cycle of change happening over and over again. Facebook was the one example. We can look at the most recent example that's happening right now, OpenAI. OpenAI was established as a for free and not for profit enterprise.
Yeah, that's why Elon Musk did it, right? He started for that reason, and then people got greedy, so he dumped out, and I think he does Gronk now.
He does. Like, look, there's a lot that happened before, but to look at the high level, story or dwelling on what exactly happened, OpenAI was established as a company that will create AI for masses, for human empowerment and human benefit. Over the time, right now where we are, OpenAI has has distinguished itself as two separate entities, one as not-for-profit, but the second for-profit. They have still said that they will make 5% or 7%, but nobody knows how they're going to control it. And in reality, that's not going to happen, because the shareholder market and shareholder value is going to drive the profits and get to the point where we'll do all sort of things that are essentially similar to what Facebook has been doing against the human fabric and social fabric. And the problem is in the definition itself. The problem is how systems and societies are set up right now, where companies are incentivized to do the wrong thing. Now, we know this Milton Friedman's doctrine came in 70s and 80s, where the definition was given that only goal for a company or an organization is to increase shareholder value, is to generate shareholder value, as long as you can do it lawfully. Now, the definition lawfully is very flimsy, because what lawfully means is what is the minimum level of acceptable criteria for an individual or for an organization to be classified as member of the society. That's how we create law, right? When the very first time somebody steals, now we need to write a law for stealing. When for the very first time somebody hurts somebody else, we need to now write a law for that. You can't hit anyone. Any time when somebody breaks the trust of mutual social trust that we have established to be part of society, is when we create a law. And what we are saying is, for organizations, the minimum acceptable criteria is that they need to follow the law, and they can do whatever they want to do, whatever they want to follow to make profits. I think that's a pretty flimsy definition. And then we know that these leaders can go and tweak and bend the arm to change the law in their favor. So where do we stop? And I think that's the biggest question that society must ask itself.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, I mean, there's a lot of questions of where we're talking right now here. So I'm going to throw a couple in here if you don't mind. Got 900 people on. The very good job. They came back for more, Dave. They love you. Yeah, I think that was better than the last time. I definitely underestimated. I figured with moving some different conversations, but hopefully just the fact of what's going on around the world today is landing with a lot of people, and matching that up with leadership and leadership through this, I think is an important topic to kind of bring together. But with what Jason's asking here, I skipped a couple. I'm going to jump around a little bit here because they're making me, those dirty rats. What's the biggest myth that the media pushes about middle class right now? So we're talking about two different medias here, right? We're talking about the CNNs, the BBCs. What do you have? You have ABC in Australia, right?
We do. We call it Australian Broadcast Service.
And Fox News, and I think we all know who's more. The thing that frustrates me is, especially now with AI, you really don't know what's true anymore. You really, it's hard. I watch the Israeli channel V24, CNN, ABC, the ABC over here, CBS. I have a channel that's nothing but CBS News. Some of them are very difficult to watch because you watch one news and it gives all this data and this information, and then you watch the same story over here and it could go either way. And there's all this emotion and there's no real data supporting. It's just buzzwords and it's challenging at times to try and figure out what is real. But so we have social media, and there's certainly people on channels like this that are very biased demographically, or I'm not demographically, politically, or one way or the other. But what is the biggest myth media pushes? Traditional or whatever we would find out here in the independent media.
Well, let's look at how we consume our news these days. What we're confusing today is the difference between fact and opinion.
Yes.
What fact is truth. What opinion is what your opinion and my opinion about truth is. Sun comes out every day, sun rises in the east, that's a fact.
Can't deny it.
Can't deny. Gravity is a fact. However, I'm feeling cold, or you are not feeling cold in
Good
similar.
example.
That's opinion. That's how I feel about a fact. Whatever temperature is, it's a fact. What I feel in that situation, whether I feel cold or hot, is an opinion. And I think that's what is moral obligation and social obligation right now for social media as well as for media channels, to distinguish between what's fact and what's an opinion. We have started consuming news as a feed to seek opinions because human biases have been here forever. Human biases is not a new thing. We have had human biases since the very first time we we we, we started um, uh, you know consuming our food, or we started thinking that we need to start living in caves. Biases have always been there. What media is doing right now is playing on human biases and shoving their opinions in the name of fact, and that's wrong, because the duty for media was to provide news, not to provide opinions. And when they are providing opinions, they need to clearly disintegrate and dismantle and tell us that these are opinions. And I think that's what is the biggest problem that's happening in social media or in general media landscape right now. The biggest challenge for us. Yep, carry on.
I was just going to say, the interesting, you talked about an evolution earlier, back in the 60s and 70s, this was going on, and then, moving forward. And when you just said what you just said, the mainstream media is what it's called, right? The mainstream media also evolved. It used to be, Dan Rather, just the facts. It was whether they totally were or not. Some of the Kennedy stuff, but
Yep.
no, I'm kidding. Whether that was the case or not, it was everybody getting the same story. It was just the facts. Then through time, the news continued to be the news, and maybe there were some people that swayed a little bit one direction or the other, and they tilted some of the information a little bit, but still basically the news: CBS, NBC, ABC, and then there became a little bit more, I think, with the cable. Maybe I'm wrong about this. With the cable, there became news and opinion pieces.
Yep.
Kind of like a column in the news. Like I write a column in the Mangum Star. But then they became the news. Am I wrong about that progression? And what do you think about that?
You're not wrong. You're very right, Rod. Again, we're talking about the market forces. So until the time you mentioned, most media and the most news was to inform people about what's happening in the country and what's happening in the world. Government mostly ran broadcasting services, unless until you were living in a socialist country where government will try to control facts. Largely in most democratic countries, news was the means to inform people, because more informed people are more aware they are what's happening in the society. More society can progress, more society
Well,
can
news used to be against the government. It used to be that wall to insulate people and tell, hey, this is what your government's doing to you. Now it's kind of the opposite.
Essentially, it was one of the three pillars of modern society.
Exactly.
Because judicial system, political system, and the journalists, they were holding people accountable for what they were supposed to do.
When
But
did
then
that end?
Say that one time.
I'm trying to think. When did that end? Because it is ended.
It has, because it ended when we started seeing markets starting to control information by the means of cable media, because suddenly these channels were not providing information. They were catching eyeballs, and they were incentivized to sell ad revenue, to sell news, to be biased for one candidate or for one party, because there was some sort of nexus behind. And that's exactly the problem. When market is the single driver for human society and human evolution, and the only driver for market is to make decisions in favor of very few select shareholders. They will always make decisions that are good for those few shareholders, not for rest of the economy and rest of the human society.
All right, well, stay in that narrative right there. I'm still skipping, trying to stay within the realm here. I want to have you do Ali Moore. I don't know why she put sorry before this, but what signs should people watch for when narratives are being manipulated? And I think right here, you're kind of when it's about the financial gain from, when that's the primary focus, then now you're manipulating not only get eyeballs on, but also to get sponsors. And when I say sponsors, I mean like big money. That corporate entity became something. It lost the original meaning, and now is just a package. What do you think about this?
Thank you, Ali,
What
for that
signs
question.
should we be looking for? Yeah, thank you, Ali.
I think that's the single most difficult challenge for humans right now. It is
It
the
is.
ability to think critically and make decisions independently that are good for me. We have so much information right now. There is this confusion between information, facts, and truth. There is then the what we call as the whole concept of information fatigue. We keep getting this information, and some stage human bias and human brain shuts off. Human brain is still very new to be able to comprehend and deal with this amount of information that we're getting right now. There is
True.
no problem in terms of getting information. If you and I we want to get truth, we have so much of tools and
Absolutely.
at our disposal that I can go on and look at 20 different websites to essentially get to the truth. We can talk about, there are websites that can provide you different sides of the story, but then we
Right.
can make our opinion. Then I think that's the biggest thing we need to do. For us, it shouldn't be about what are the opinions that we are being shoved down our throats. It should be what's the information that we're getting, and can I go back and look back and think about it independently. And in terms of what are the narratives and how we are manipulated, I think what we need to do is we need to get our information from different sources. Don't consume information from one media source
Bingo.
itself. You need to
Bingo.
go and look at the whole spectrum.
The biggest reason for that is because certain media sources are only going to give you. By the way, we have 1,000 people. It's nice. Certain media sources are going to give you only certain media opinions, facts. But on top of that, and what I was thinking about before I was going to mention this, as you were talking, one thing you got to be careful in is going to different media sources, because if you're also watching the same thing or liking the same things, those algorithms, even if you're doing searches on the internet, right? Even with Google, which is the original AI, more or less, not the original, but basically the original
One
AI.
of the functional AI, yeah.
Yeah, for consumption, yeah. But those algorithms are going to catch up to you and do the same thing you talked about earlier, right?
Absolutely. And it is not just algorithms, Rod. I think we need to accept that, it's also our bias and also our intention to stay in our own comfort zone. We like to hear more and read more about what I know and what my opinions are. When we look at news, sometimes and most times, I would say, not sometimes, most times we will look at news to essentially validate my own opinions. I look at news to read, to tell myself that what I have been thinking is right and is true, and then I start looking at similar sort of news. Like we discussed, our duty is to consume news from different media sources and from different spectrum of society, because in the end, that's the beauty of society, to have difference of opinions. I need to know what other people are thinking, especially those who are on the other side of spectrum. That was the beauty of what democracy was, that we can have people who have varied range of opinion, very varied spectrum of opinion, and we can cohesively decide what we want to do. That's what protected human society, that we did not end up in a ditch, because if everyone was saying we should head in that direction, one odd voice said, actually, no, that might be too dangerous. And somebody said, let's listen to this person, because why he's saying it would be dangerous might have saved the entire human race from doing something wrong. And that's the beauty
Over
of
and over and over
yeah,
again. I mean, think about it. If
absolutely.
we had a true democracy where only the majority said this is the way it's going to be. In our case, you'd have California, and nothing against those two states in this conversation, but you'd have California and New York running the entire country for everybody that has also differing needs. So the Democratic Republic. I mean, let's face it. Our leaders here across the pond over here. I mean, like I said in the beginning, we owe this discussion that we're having to them, because they gave us that ability to start to take control back from our government, who also works in corp. I mean, this all coming together, big business. I mean, big corp, big ag, big pharma, big media. That's who's running everything right now, and not for the American people. But we can change that in a heartbeat, right?
Absolutely.
Well,
Um,
in a couple cycles, in a couple political cycles, we could change that. Maybe not in a heartbeat.
I think the start is to have a conversation. Start is to listen to the varied and other side of opinions, because those other side of opinions might influence my own decisions if I am open to
Yes.
listening to those opinions. And I think that's the very starting point. Um, Leadership, humanity, society, they are only functional when you listen to the other side, and that's fundamental truth.
Let's go back to what Lady Film Law said here. Very first question out of the gate, and but just what you said. Now, I was going to put something else up, but I'm going back. I've skipped over her a couple of times, but you just said something that's important. Is, where does leadership come into all this? How do we get? She's asking a different question slightly here, but where do you see real leadership still showing up today? So let's ask the question that way. It's better than the direction I was going to go.
Thank you for the question. Where do we see real leadership still showing up today? I think fundamentally, when we look at our own individual lives, we see a pattern of leadership that that's demonstrated by our parents, that's demonstrated by our siblings as we grow up until we get to the age when we go and start a university or school, and then we join the corporate world and we get in the mad race of everything. We will often see parents running organizations, doing different sort of things, but then coming back to their family and looking at their kids and telling them that this is how they should behave and this is how they should operate. I talk about this in an example. A little Joey comes home and he tells his dad that Julia was being annoying today, so I pushed her away. And that dad tells little Joey that, hey, this is not how you're supposed to deal with females. You will, being a male child, you will be physically stronger. That means you have to tell yourself that it is not the strength, it is how you show up in the society and how you deal with women is what matters. 40 years later, little Joey is grown up adult, and he remembers the same conversation that his dad told him, and he thanks his dad. That's leadership. That very fundamental level of that one conversation between the little Joey and dad is leadership. So what we see in parenting is one true form of leadership, because most parents want the kid to grow up and be productive and good individuals and be good human beings. Now, somewhere down the line, when we start our corporate career, we forget this part, that we follow our parents not because they force us, not because there are KPIs, not because there are financial incentives attached. We follow them because they love us and they care for us, and we have our trust in them. So in one form or shape, a good parenting and a relationship, or good parent-child relationship, is a true form of leadership. And we need to exhibit similar sort of qualities when we go out in the society. Leadership is not about titles. Leadership is not about KPIs. Leadership is not about how much revenue a company should make. Leadership essentially is to show care to the people that you are leading. And that true form is essentially still true when we look at parent-child relationship.
100%. It goes all the way through, from around the dinner table, through the neighborhood, through societies, and of course into the corporate world, and onto the nation and onto the world. Just to build on what you were saying from David here, how does silence from leaders? Now, I know we're talking a little bit about political leadership here, but it applies both in the corporate world as well as the institutional world, right? How does silence from leaders impact public confidence? I would think that silence, one, all of a sudden you're like, well, what's really going on? But two, you don't have the direction of where you need to go. So there's probably a couple things in this answers in this question, don't you think?
Nice name, David. Thank you for the question.
Yeah.
Let's look at from two angles. One angle is the element of trust. You can only lead people by demonstrating that what you say, what you believe, and what you do. Put your money where your mouth is. So most leaders will say one thing, but when it comes to act, they will do, and they will exactly alter their path. You can't create trust if your actions are different to what you say and what you speak out in front of your team. So
be authentic.
Yes, and when leaders choose to stay silent, it's a choice that they're making. It's not just the act of not saying something or not doing anything about it. It is the choice that they're making to stay silent and not do anything about it. So if you really want, and if you're really serious about things, if you're really true about integrity, if you're really true about ethics, if you're really true about truth itself, if you're really true about caring people, leaders should speak up, because that's how you create trust. That's how you tell people that what I'm saying is what I absolutely mean. That's one element. Second part of it is, often people say, let's follow the law. And most leaders will say, I'm quiet, because they're still following the law. Yet, when they know that even while they are following the law, it is against the human society, it's against what really somebody should have done, what's really right, what's really correct. That's when leaders forget that when you are following the law, you are being a follower. You're following the law. You're not leading the law. You're not becoming and not leading what the law will become in 10 years' time. Let's talk about so much spectrum of things. Things were still legal, and you can talk about 100 different things, slave trade, all those sort of things. They were legal when these things were happening, because that's how a law is written. Things that are legal essentially doesn't mean it is right. Leaders lead the change what law will become in 10 years' time, in 2 decades, in 3 decades' time. And that's what leaders need to remember, that it is not about merely following the law, because you are basically following the lowest minimum acceptable criteria of society. It is about leading the law, what will become law in 10 years' time, 20 years' time.
Wasn't that the Supreme Court, or what are you meaning by that? What do you need to adjust to because as I'm hearing you say that, leading or following the law, the Supreme Court in our nation, and I assume every nation has a similar structure, right? What is different from that than what you're talking about now?
So let's look at how we will see typical Senate hearings, right? A CEO will come, and CEO will be questioned by by different senators, and senators will ask questions, and most CEOs will say, but we were following the law. Now, if leaders know that they were following the law, yet there was something that they did wasn't really right, they need to step up and they need to fix it. Because if the minimum criteria or the maximum criteria for them, for that matter, is they need to follow the law, and that's it, as long as they are following the law, even though despite the fact that they're wrong, shouldn't be the case. The biggest case in this case would be tax evasion. Often most companies will come and say, we are not paying any taxes because we are following the law, right? Now, these companies are the same companies who know that if they want to be part of society, if you and I, if we are paying our fair shares to operate in a country, we should be paying law, but we should be paying taxes. I'm sorry, but the hard truth is there is no law that's stopping them from not paying taxes, but they know it's not the right thing. And that's the difference.
Yeah, that's where you start getting into weeds and all that stuff. But I agree with what you're saying. But now that comes back to, like you said, it's not the right thing. We should be changing the law. But the only way that's going to happen is if we put the people in office. Literally, it's the only way it's going to happen. If we put the people in office that say that they will do that, we vote them in, and then they do it. They don't do it, we vote them back out. Say, okay, who's next? That's the only way that's gonna happen. Let's face it, the people are never gonna vote in term limits. I mean, there may be an individual here or there that may, but realistically, as a whole, politicians are politicians. Their personality, they're not there for that reason. They're there for different reasons, right? Power and money. I mean, that's really where it is today, in my belief, where politicians are, why they're there. Some people may come in because they want a problem fixed, but then they get groomed by the system, and within a very little amount of time, look at all the politicians that came in with negative household income or value or worth, net worth, and a term or two later, they're worth $17 million. That's why they're there.
Absolutely, Rod. I believe the time has come for us to flip the definition and narrative around leadership. We see leadership and we see success in leadership, what we call as leaders who are successful, by measuring them and measuring their financial wealth, their net value, and how much they have gained and garnered, and the titles they carry. The reality is leadership was for serving. The whole concept of politics was initially to come and serve people. Politics wasn't glamorous. It was supposed to be not to gain power and garnish power. It was more who is willing to come and save the society and lead the nation, build the nation.
Give back to the country that allowed you to do what you did for yourself.
Absolutely. And we will see the founding fathers, all the history of what leadership was meant to be. And every time somebody had meaningfully changed human society for good, they have always come from place of serving others. Today we celebrate, like at the start of the conversation we mentioned, we look at the Forbes 100 list, and we look at the people who are sitting at the top of the pecking order, and we say, yeah, they should be leading the country. No, that's not true. Leaders who genuinely believe in serving the society and uplifting humanity should be the ones who should be leading the society and leading nations. And we have duty to pick these leaders and bring in front of the queue so they can lead nations. And the only way we can change this is by changing the definition, by changing the narrative around leadership.
One of the, just to add to that concept, one of the first persons I had on this show is the best friend of my best friend. He's a producer out in California, so is my best friend. And he and I, this guy's name is Barron. He and I are good friends. And he very, 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 very left-leaning politically. a liberal, but my point is that his concept, which I believe in and think is an awesome concept, whether it ever happened, but his concept is you should take the money out of elections. That'll fix everything. Because right now you can't run for certainly higher offices unless you get a whole bunch of money, right? But his whole thing was you should only allow X number of minutes of TV per week. Both sides get the exact. Everybody on both sides have to have the exact same amount. Other than that, you can't run ads, or you can only spend this much money or something like that. Anyway, his point was take the money out of elections, because what did I think Kamala spent over $2 billion, and Trump, I don't know, he spent probably $1 billion or something like that. But that's why they're there. You made the thing earlier. That's why only the Forbes 500 people can run at this point, right? You just said it a minute ago about they're probably not the best people to be running in office, but it should be the farmer that comes out of the field to serve a time. Should be the banker that comes out of his bank, or the person that has the small coffee shop. That's what you were talking about. That mix of people is what started this country, and what should be continuing to be part of that country. Because we do need leaders, just like in a company. I said this early on. You need the leadership of a company. The vision, the drive, the technical data, the numbers, all that. Then you need the workers of a company, the backbone. Because if both of those aren't working in unity, then the systems fail, the company fails. And in this case, our country is. And honestly, I think Australia's having a lot of troubles too, and Europe is having a lot of troubles for different reasons. Some of them spiritually, right? There's a lot of that stuff going on. But it all comes back to leadership, vision, and the country that leads you. The people
Absolutely.
that are in the government that lead you, right?
Absolutely, Rod. The problems that the United States is failing, it's not geographically constrained. It's the whole world's facing.
As a matter of
facing
fact, Europe's worse off than we are right now, right?
Yes, there are nations in Europe facing similar challenges. South America is facing similar challenge. Globally, we have similar challenge. I'm not an expert on political systems, but what I can talk about is leadership. What you mentioned about fixing the how much money one can spend during the political campaigns. I'm sure there are so many experts far more better equipped than me who can come up with million things and million solutions. But the point is the intent. If that intent is not there, those million solutions are of no use. And the problem is right now, people who are supposed to fix these problems are the ones who are getting benefited maximum at the expense of hurting the rest of the society. And unless until two things will happen, unless until society will stop accepting such leaders, or these leaders will wake up one day and realize that this is the wrong thing to do, so they should do the right thing. None of this will get fixed. So we have
the latter is going to happen easier than the well, both of them are difficult to have happen, aren't they? Go ahead with what you were saying.
Your point is right. I think from my perspective, we need to bring this change from both levels. It's the top down and bottom up. We should stop accepting leaders who are hurting society when we know they're hurting the society. Number one. Number two, we will have leaders who will one day step through the ranks and get to the point where we'll bring the change themselves. And they will push the change from top down. We will have a prime minister or president one day who will realize that this is the wrong thing to do. I'm here to serve people, not to make billions of dollars by selling caps and shoes. And when that change will happen, both from top down and bottom up, that's when society will change, and it will happen. I am optimistic about humanity. Humanity has always done the right thing. What I'm nervous about right now is we're running out of time. We have so many forces running against humanity. And I'm not talking about one force, I'm not talking about technology. We have so many evolutionary forces that are competing with humanity right now. Talk about economic forces, talk about technological forces, talk about scientific forces. These forces are running in parallel to human development and human evolution. For us, it is extremely paramount and important right now to fix those things so we can get to the fundamental problems. And we can't fix the fundamental problems if leadership is not fixed right. I genuinely believe there is no lack of resources on this planet for humanity. There is no lack of food. There is no lack of minerals, energy, money, natural resources, or whatsoever I want to talk about. But when these resources start to hoard in one sector of society, there is shortage in everyone. There was a recent survey done and recent research that was published. If we were to pack a full stadium, and let's say in this stadium there are 56,000 people, that will be representing everyone on this planet, whatever that ratio is. So one person in this stadium represents how so many people. So we equate to 56 will equate to 7 billion population. 25% of this pack will control 90% of resources, whether that's money, food, access to clean water, and whatnot. And rest remaining population will be scrambling to gain 25% of resources. Until this ratio is fixed right, we can't have abundance for anyone, everything. And that's what's going wrong when people talk about AI or next big thing, that this is going to fix society. My response is no. We have seen this over and over again. In 1965, the ratio between the average salary of an employee and a CEO was 1:20. So if you are earning $100, I'll earn by the ratio, what, $2,000? Today, that ratio has gone to 420. Within mere 50 or 60 years, we have changed that ratio from 1:400 now. So if you're earning $1, I am earning $400. If you're earning $1,000, I'm earning what, 400 times 1,000? Now, how is it possible humanly for me to add that amount of extra value in a same workplace where you and I, we are working, producing same quality of service, same infrastructure, same product? And that's the reason why there are people, employees in McDonald's who can't afford to go and eat at McDonald's, who are working at McDonald's.
All right, we got to just to add some context into that, because we don't want to get here. The narrative starts to get extreme when we make broad brush comments in that environment. While I totally agree with what you're saying, I think those numbers get dramatically skewed, because let's take the top 1% money earners out. That's what probably percentage wise adds such a dramatic change, because you have corporate boards and you have companies that give ridiculous amounts of money to people that it's shareholder driven, and it's all of their negotiated deals and all that. But if you take most of the people, the small business owners, the under 100 employees, the bulk of what employs people in at least in our country, that number isn't so dramatic. As a matter of fact, there were many times my employees were making more than me as the owner of the company. But then you add in those percentages of those people that are making 4,000 times what the average person is. And yes, working at McDonald's and not being able to afford McDonald's. First of all, McDonald's was never supposed to be a living wage corporation. That was never what it was intentionally meant to do. But politics got into that and created this monster, which is also increasing the cost of everything else. I'm not a McDonald's fan at all. I don't remember the last time I ever ate at McDonald's, but it was designed for a thing. 16-year-old, 15-year-olds learning the workforce, they were to be paid minimum wage. That's where minimum wage is. Now politics, and honestly, greed of politics, making the cost of living go higher for for unrealistic reasons. And then you talk about the media, and then you talk about the the, the what I call utopia coming up, because it is going that direction. But you're right, without leadership, the right leadership there. I'll add to what you said in that not only does it change things or how that can come and so forth and so on, but at the end of the day, who's gonna benefit from it? Right now, if when the utopia comes, the cost of making goods and services is going to come down so much you don't really have to work. But if we aren't in charge of our political system, then we're going to fall into a system where they really benefit from it. The elites, the people you're talking about right now, and the politicians that are part of that group. And then we fall into whatever's needed by the country at the time. By the way, we're an hour and almost 15 minutes into this. I know you only got about 15 minutes left. Are you still okay, or should we pop through some of these questions? Because I don't want to miss any of them. Just shorter answers.
Let's go to questions, and we try to answer as many as we can.
All right. So this one I think they stole from my opening monologue, and I'm going to give a little bit of an answer to it, but and then you take over. Is institutional corruption harder to fix than illegal corruption? Well, institutional is by nature, I believe, harder because it's unidentified, whereas illegal corruption, that's easier to fetter out if they're not being protected. Then wouldn't that be kind of the answer we want to go through?
Absolutely. Thanks for the question, Amy. Once we fix the fundamentals of a particular institution, that if the institution is really benefiting the society, that's only where we can fix institutional corruption.
How do you think we do that? Well, let me back up. Let me back up. Do you think Doge is a good thing or not?
I think the intent was good, but the fundamentals of what good organization and good leadership should do were missing there. So while the intent was good, I would say the execution was poor because fundamentals were missing.
I think you're absolutely right. I think also, I don't think it was some things were missing as much as there were people that were being ferreted out of this institutional corruption that used their levers to make it look that way. Do you think there's any possibility of that, or is that just conspiracy? What do you think? Not to paint you anywhere, just curious. I'm curious.
Yeah, my opinion about it is that when leaders come from a one set angle, and if their value or vision is not aligned with the rest of the society, their actions will always damage society. That's what we're talking about. Any organization, whether that's a local charitable organization, whether that's your local football club, if the goals are not in line with the larger community, they will harm the community. Their actions will harm the community. And that's what happened with Doge, because if the Doge's goal was to uplift general middle class American society, then the main media, the main money that was running Doge shouldn't have been in the lead. They should have been essentially aligned with what is we are here for, what is that will genuinely help the society. And if your primary answer is let's cut the task force, let's cut the workforce, and let's shave off 50% of task force or 90% of workforce, you're not going to achieve benefits. You're not going to achieve your goal because you are essentially working against the rest of the remaining masses.
I think the part you're talking about, there was other things, finding programs that were ridiculous in spending, trying to get the cost of what we spend every year, 16 point some trillion dollars a year, getting that shaved down. So there was that side of it. But then the other side of, I think what you're talking about, there was a lot of, there was a lot, shit, I lost my train of thought there. What the hell was I talking about? Damn it.
It was, what are you talking about? The retentions and pink slips.
No, but what I mean is okay. So you're talking about the elimination of jobs in the workforce, but I think the intent on that, and I think the Republican Party, not to defend or not, but just to lay out, their mantra, whether it's true or not, is smaller government. So I think what those cutbacks were coming from was an overrated, a fat, sassy, huge government that we have. And adding IRS agents, even adding more openly through previous. I think that's what then the narrative got changed, that it was the workforces that were being affected. Whereas in other administrations, when we tried to cut back on the government size, see if it was worded that way, that then the society sees it that way. But if it's the workforce, people are being laid off left and right, that people accept as a different, right? So here we have that narrative struggle again. What is it really? What is at the end of the day the intent? And then having the discussion on both sides on why that happened, and then coming out and ferreting the truth. Because so much of that happens now, where you get one narrative, and like you said earlier, one side of the aisle is going to only hear this. Yeah, I say the aisle, but you know what I mean. The other side of the aisle is going to only hear this. And so now I'm 80% sure this is correct, and you're only 20% sure that I'm not the biggest stupid moron in the entire world, right?
Rodd, I think for society to work, first of all, we need to change the concept of aisles. It should be a huge spectrum where people can jump across, and there are no aisles or barriers for people to jump across. It's a horizontal lane
Should
where
be,
you
but
just,
that's what we have.
that's what it should be, and that's what it was. But now we have created these aisles where barriers, the people are on this side, and there is this side, and there is a gap in the middle. As
Yeah,
far as
and that gap is the ability to listen to the other side. That's what that gap is.
and there wasn't a gap, there were no physical barriers there. It was people will cross one or other side, and because there was no side, it was just one spectrum, so to speak. As far as Doge and any government enterprise, or for that matter any organization is concerned, if we struggle on fixing the basic purpose of a company or an organization, and that's not right, we will always struggle. For me, if I look at Doge aim was to increase performance and bring more efficiency in the system. That's what the name said. But if the intent goes and shifts to cut costs at any level, and that becomes the moral beacon of a company, then which one is it? Are you trying to increase efficiency, or are you trying to decrease cost? Because if the cost is cutting is the prime objective, then you are not talking about the same thing that I am talking about. And I think that's the problem for most organizations and most leaders. They forget that why they were there for the first in the very first place.
Interesting. So let me ask you this: what does let's go to Clive here. What does personal responsibility still play as a role in chaotic systems? We're in this leadership pocket right here.
Thank you for that question, Clive.
Good
Leaders,
question.
buck must stop with the leader. That's my answer to it. Leaders are the one who should take responsibility for their actions, for their team's actions, and that simply means sometimes coming out and saying, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake." Those leaders who can't take personal responsibility, neither would they be able to demonstrate and exhibit trust in the teams, nor will they be able to build teams that are high performing teams. So it is the
Yeah.
it's the basic fundamental of leadership, that you have to take responsibility.
No, 100%. And just building onto that with Mac here, I think it is McCall. How can leaders rebuild trust once it's broken? Now, I think we're no matter what, we're 1 foot politics, 1 foot corporate world here, or families for that matter. It's human nature. How do you build that trust back though?
Thanks, Mac. One step at a time, one action at a time.
Yeah.
Trust is like a big jar, and think about it as a jar full of marbles. The only way you can fill the jar up to the top is by adding one marble at a time, and by that I mean one action at a time, one situation at a time, where you say what you mean and you do what you say.
Like that. Yeah, and it comes full circle. You do what you say, and then you say what you're going to do, and you do what you say, and then you keep doing that.
Yeah, it's over
It's
and
a
over again.
continuing journey. It's a step on a 1,000-mile journey sometimes.
Yeah.
For Gerard, do you think the middle class is being intentionally divided? And I think they are, but what do you think?
That's a hard question to answer, Gerard. What is intention? Essentially, when systems are designed to benefit a few select, you don't need intentions. It's the natural outcome. You can't put banana in a mixie and get orange juice out of it. You have to put orange to get orange juice. It's the same way. For us to fix what's happening in the society right now, by only means we can do this is by fixing the system itself. And I'm not talking about economic system. I'm not talking about political system. I'm no one to comment on whether we should stop believing in democracy. I think we should. I still believe that democracy is the best means, and democracy and the whole democratic system will evolve as humanity evolves. But what I'm saying is, it's not about system itself, that what form of system we follow. It's mostly around how we follow, and is it aligned with the benefit for general benefit for the masses.
Yeah.
People talk about, socialism is bad or capitalism is bad. My response is both of them are equally bad if implemented in a wrong way. They can both benefit a few and harm many, as long as how the system is implemented.
So this has got an interesting twist here for Don. What is the cost of truth telling in today's media environment? And this is big time because, and whose truth is whose truth? But in today's world, what's the cost of trying to be honest with yourself in that leadership? Let's keep the leadership fine tuned, and you're standing out, taking the arrows, being a leader, but you're telling truths. What is the cost of that in today's media environment?
Thank you for the question, Don. My response is, what's the point of surviving if when we get to the other side, there is no soul left? For companies or media organizations to feel that they have to get to the other side, and that means they have to do a deal with the devil, or they have to not tell the truth because that's a nice thing to do, then what's the point of getting to the other side? So companies who genuinely believe their beacons, their purpose is to really tell the truth, and even at the expense of it's going to give them a short-term harm, we have seen companies, we have seen organizations who have done the right thing. That was the hard thing, and that's why it's important to do, because often easy thing is not the right thing. So the choices companies make and leaders make is what defines what those companies are. And coming back to the previous question, that's how you gain trust.
Absolutely. So just last question, and then I'm going to have you read the next couple of comments here. But Dirk, it looks like, can independent media really challenge corporate narratives? I think they can, as long as you get people supporting those independent media sources and coming together and having those conversations. How would you say that, Dave?
Absolutely, Rod. Thank you, Dirk, for even asking that question. I think yes. There is this theory called ripple effect. When a butterfly flutters its wing across the ocean in Amazon, I can feel its ripple. I think I believe world is so connected that we can make a difference. Our individual actions, what media source, what news we consume, and how we reflect our thinking in our actions. My individual actions might be too little to change the whole world, but my action with somebody else's action and then somebody else's action is how we change the world. So yes, um, as long as we are willing to accept what's truth, what's the right thing to do, yes, we can change corporate narratives, because often it's based on what we are willing to hear, and if we're not willing to hear the wrong analogy and the systems and the opinions, then these things will stop because they're not incentivized to do that.
100%. Okay, last two comments are yours, and then send off. I'll put you in the green room while I close up. We still got 887 people still on at an hour and a half, my friend. Great job today. Good job.
Thank you
Go
very much.
ahead. Go ahead and Branson Hill. What does Branson Hill have to say here?
Branson's been very kind with his comments, and thank you for
He
your
is.
time, Branson. Your comments are great. Show the conversation is needed right now. I absolutely believe it's not a nuclear weapon. It's not AI. It's not any other force or any other invention that humanity will create is going to destroy or distract humanity. It is humanity's will in leadership. Leadership is what will bring us back to where humanity should be. And I believe this is the most important conversation we should be having at every school, at every organization, in every team, in every forum, wherever we can. So thank you.
There you go. This is your last one. Last comment of the day, and then we'll send you in the green room. I'll close it down and meet you back there in a minute. Why don't you read this, and then final word, big wave, and I'll throw you in the green room.
Thank you, Amy, for your comments. Powerful insights already. Thank you for tackling tough topics. Topics are tough because we don't have solutions, and only way we can find solution is when we come together, when we talk about it. So thank you for being part of it, and thank you for facilitating and letting this conversation.
Beautiful show. Give a big wave. I'll see you in a second on the other side.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for.
You bet. I got you there, brother. I appreciate it. I'll see you in a minute. I'm just going to close down the show a little bit. I got a little bit of information I wanted to bring across. And by the way, David, would you put in the private comments? Would you put in your contact information, and so I can copy and paste that. I forgot to ask you to do that earlier. But before we wrap up, let me just say this clearly, okay? If this conversation resonated with you, if it made you pause, question a headline, or feel a little less alone in what you've been sensing, that is not by accident. The show exists to create space for honest conversations that are not filtered, they're not rushed, or shaped by algorithms. Insights and Straight Talk is an independent by design. That means no corporate scripts, no political handlers, and no obligation to keep things comfortable. It also means we are powered directly by the community that shows up week after week. So if you want to support what we're building, the simplest way is on Substack, is a small monthly subscription. We have a free version. Subscription helps keep this show independent, keeps the conversations going, and keeps us accountable to people, not sponsors or narratives. And if you are a business, organization, or a local leader who believes these conversations matter, reach out. Reach out about sponsorship, not as a buy, but as a way to stand behind honest dialogue. Most importantly, stay engaged. Ask better questions. You guys always do. Talk to people who think differently than you do. And do not let yourself be divided from people who share your daily realities, even if the headlines tell you otherwise. We are not here to tell you what to think. We are here to create space to think clearly. Thank you for being part of this community. We will see you the next time on Insights and Straight Talk with your host, Rodd Duff, and always the calm, cool, collected, the beautiful, the wonderful, and you'll see her now because I'm out, Producer Barbie.
Before you leave, if you'd like to watch another one of the podcasts, click the first link in the description. We love having you here and we appreciate all your support.
And with that, Producer Barbie and I are out.